My name's Jake Morrison. I'm the county permits director, and the third generation to work this 40-acre apple orchard. My grandfather bought this land back in 1994, when it was nothing but scrub and potential. My father turned it into a thriving Honeycrisp and Gala operation that fed half the county's farmers markets. Now you'd think after 30 years of honest work, this place would be safe. But in this town, even apple trees aren't immune from paperwork and politics. When Dad had his heart attack in 2018, I had to make a choice, fight the bank or take the steady paycheck keeping the lights on. So I became the guy who approves construction permits, the same kind of decisions that could one day threaten my own land. I never thought that irony would come full circle. Right next door sits Willowbrook Estates, a high-end neighborhood with manicured lawns, imported pavers, and a homeowners association that regulates everything from mailbox color to lawn height. In January, a new resident moved in. Dalea Prescott, 52, sharp suit, sharper tongue, straight out of Phoenix. Within her first month, she filed 47 violations against neighbors and started snapping photos of my orchard like it was a crime scene. Then the strangers started showing up. Men in pressed shirts carrying survey equipment, rental cars with Phoenix plates, and anonymous calls offering to help me sell before the market shifted. It didn't take long to realize something bigger was unfolding. This wasn't about noise or fences or irrigation lines. It was about control, about someone trying to rewrite the rules around a farm that existed long before Willowbrook ever broke ground. And that's where this fight truly began. I thought, the first notice taped to my gate was a mistake, a $15,000 remediation fee claiming my irrigation system violated a county health code I'd never even heard of. The letterhead said Willowbrook Estates HOA, and the signature at the bottom was mine. Yeah, my name, my handwriting, my title, except I'd never signed it. When I asked for proof, Dalea Prescott smiled like she'd been waiting for the question. She opened her leather portfolio, the one she carried like a weapon, and slid out a compliance agreement supposedly signed by me, authorizing the penalty. It was a perfect forgery. Same pen stroke, same date format, even my old office initials. Someone had access to county documents. Someone wanted this to look official, and Dalea wasn't stopping with me. Within weeks, she hit half the neighborhood with violation letters. Peeling paint, tool sheds, bird feeders, even holiday lights. The courthouse staff started recognizing her heels before they saw her face. Residents said it felt like living under audit. Then the out-of-town cars appeared again. Men in crisp shirts scanning property lines with humming equipment, muttering about preliminary assessments. They'd vanish before anyone could ask questions. Around the same time, I got anonymous calls offering to buy my orchard. 48 hours only. Mr. Morrison, before values drop. Down the road, the Kowalskis, who'd raised chickens there for 47 years, got fined into bankruptcy. Their farm went dark overnight. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about a few fines or a forged signature. This was a playbook. Pressure the old-timers, bury them in paperwork, and buy cheap once they're broken. And my signature, my forged compliance, was the opening move. It was a Tuesday morning when I opened my front door and found a process server standing there, holding a manila envelope thick enough to stop a bullet. Jake Morrison, you've been served. Inside, a lawsuit claiming my orchard was operating illegally on residential zoned land. The filing demanded I shut down within 30 days and pay $250,000 for diminished property values. The attached exhibit was an original zoning map from 1987. It looked official, like on seals, signatures, the works on, until I noticed one thing. The county seal was wrong. Missing the small eagle we'd added in 1995. That's when the panic turned into suspicion. I called Carmen, my deputy clerk, and by noon we were knee-deep in the courthouse basement. Air thick with dust and the faint smell of toner and old paper. We spent 3 days cross-referencing every zoning amendment since 1987, line by line, seal by seal, and there it was, My land was formally grandfathered as agricultural in 1994. Signed, stamped, verified. The so-called map DeLea filed? Full of holes. Section numbers that didn't exist until 2003. A surveyor's name, Charles Deming, who'd been dead since 1986. She hadn't just filed a bad claim. She'd filed fabricated government records. I spent the next 2 nights printing a 47-page counterclaim, every page loaded with proof, survey logs, commission minutes, and chain of custody signatures. Then I filed it personally. When the clerk stamped it received, it felt like the first real swing back. This wasn't a zoning dispute anymore. This was document fraud, dressed up in county paperwork. And I wasn't the target by accident. I was the test case. It started with a white van rolling up my dirt road at 8 a.m. No markings, no county logo, just a pair of men in crisp shirts and reflective vests. They flashed laminated badges and introduced themselves as state agricultural inspectors. One had a clipboard. The other carried a sample bag. "We've had reports your trees are diseased," the taller one said. The problem? Every leaf on my orchard was emerald green and thriving. Still, they handed me an emergency removal order and told me to start cutting within 14 days. Something felt off. When I called the state office, the woman on the line paused before saying, "Sir, we don't have anyone by those names." Turns out, their van was a budget rental from Phoenix, and the official logo was a magnetic sticker you could buy online for $30. They weren't inspectors. They were actors in DeLea Prescott's show, but the performance didn't end there. A week later, the real county health inspector Phillips arrived with a condemnation notice for my irrigation system. Same claim. Groundwater contamination. Except my security cameras told a different story. 10 minutes after leaving my property, Phillips climbed into DeLea's SUV, where she handed him a manila envelope stuffed with what looked suspiciously like cash. That's when Carmen and I started digging deeper. Travel records showed 3 county commissioners had accepted trips to Las Vegas, all paid by Desert Development Consulting, the same address as DeLea's Phoenix law firm. And when Big Mike found resort blueprints dated 6 months before she'd even moved here, everything clicked. This wasn't random harassment. It was a coordinated land grab, with forged documents, fake inspectors, and bought officials all playing their parts. Just when I thought I'd seen every dirty trick, my phone rang one Monday morning with a voice that could freeze blood. "Mr. Morrison, this is Agent Thompson with the IRS. We've received an anonymous tip about unreported income. Within 24 hours, my bank accounts were frozen. The evidence included doctored invoices, fake deposit slips, even photos of me allegedly taking cash in the county parking lot. Professional-grade forgeries right down to the timestamps. They'd fabricated a financial crime to bleed me dry. But the contractors they questioned laughed it off. Jake? The man made me redo a form because I signed in blue ink instead of black, one said. That reputation saved me. Meanwhile, another file crossed my desk. DeLea's new permit application. The property lines looked off. According to her documents, her 2-acre lot had magically grown by another 2 acres. I overlaid her map onto our county GIS system and my stomach turned. The extra land she claimed wasn't hers. It was federally protected wetland, a no-build environmental preserve, and it got worse. My irrigation ponds, the same ones her fake inspectors had tried to condemn, were home to endangered salamanders listed under federal protection. Around us, the pressure kept mounting. The Kowalskis got a foreclosure notice. Widow Martinez was cited for unauthorized vegetable cultivation. The HOA was tightening the vise on anyone who couldn't fight back. What started as neighborhood bullying had turned into federal territory. Financial fraud, land forgery, and environmental crime all wrapped into one. That's when I realized something crucial. She wasn't trying to win a local dispute. She was trying to erase the entire map and redraw it in her name. Once we started connecting the dots, the picture got bigger and darker. Tony, my cousin and attorney, traced DeLea's paper trail beyond our county lines. What he found made my stomach drop. The same exact lawsuits, forged zoning maps, and emergency injunction filings had been used before, in Phoenix, Tucson, and Flagstaff.
Same wording.
Same seals, same deadlines. 3 elderly landowners had lost their properties under identical pressure campaigns. And all 3 sites were now luxury strip malls owned by companies tied to the same investors. Those companies, Willowbrook Resort LLC, Phoenix Development Partners, Desert Sun Holdings, and Southwestern Investment Group, weren't competitors. They were shells stacked like Russian dolls, each one owning the next, each registered to the same Phoenix address. Tony uncovered financial disclosures showing DeLea owed $3.2 million to private investors. That explained everything. She wasn't chasing profit. She was running from debt. The resort wasn't a dream project. It was her lifeline. Meanwhile, I examined her environmental impact assessment. It completely omitted the wetland she'd claimed as hers. No mention of the salamanders. No hydrology data. Nothing. A deliberate concealment of federally protected habitat. Here's the thing most developers forget. When local zoning collides with federal environmental law, federal wins every time. Violating the Clean Water Act can cost $37,500 a day plus criminal charges, and her resort's own blueprint projected 2.3 million gallons of daily water use. Enough to drain nearby wells and trigger a federal review before the first foundation was poured. That's when it hit me. She hadn't just picked a fight with a neighbor. She'd picked a fight with the federal government's environmental division, and I was holding the evidence they needed to bury her project for good. By summer, I wasn't just fighting to save my farm. I was building an army. Not with pitchforks or protest signs, but with paperwork, evidence, and people who'd had enough. Tony, my lawyer cousin, was the strategist. He'd been talking with Agent Sarah Morrison from FBI Financial Crimes, who'd already been tracking DeLea's Phoenix investors. Jake, he told me, what you've got isn't a zoning dispute. It's organized racketeering. That's when we got serious. Carmen, my deputy clerk, became our intelligence officer. She compiled everything: forged permits, bank transfers, commissioner emails, into color-coded binders that could make a prosecutor cry with joy. Big Mike agreed to wear a wire during his next meeting with DeLea, pretending to negotiate overpriced contractor bids. And then came Rachel Chen, a journalist with a reputation for exposing land scams. She'd been following similar HOA stories across the Southwest. Her expose would drop October 14th, the same day the FBI would move in. Our operation ran like clockwork. October 13th, I'd file the environmental complaint. October 14th, 6 a.m., the FBI would make arrests. Noon, Rachel's story would go live. October 15th, the county council meeting, live-streamed for the world. While they schemed behind closed doors, we worked under fluorescent lights, surrounded by stacks of binders, printouts, and the low hum of overworked printers. The community joined in, neighbors packing the school gym, holding Save Our Farm signs and telling their stories. For the first time, fear turned into focus. We weren't just defending our land anymore. We were documenting corruption, exposing power, and preparing the exact day justice would arrive. And by the sound of our printers, it was getting close. It was 5 in the morning when I woke to the sound of diesel engines growling outside my window. Headlights sliced through the orchard fog, and when I stepped onto the porch, I saw a construction crew tearing into my irrigation lines. Sparks flew as metal split under the excavator's teeth. The foreman handed me a clipboard. Work order from the county. Emergency contamination repair, he said. My signature sat neatly at the bottom, another perfect forgery. I filmed everything. License plates, faces, the damage. Then I called the sheriff and invoked my authority as county permits director to issue an emergency restoration order. Within hours, Big Mike and his crew showed up, eyes blazing, tools in hand. By sundown, water was running again, clean, cold, and defiant. But Delia wasn't finished. She pivoted from sabotage to bribery, sliding envelopes of cash across county offices, promising favorable outcomes. One commissioner admitted she'd offered him $50,000 to resolve the orchard issue. When that failed, she tried blackmail, sending photos of the sheriff's charity poker night to state ethics boards, claiming illegal gambling. It blew up in her face when reporters found out the game raised money for veterans. Meanwhile, neighbors got hit with threats, anonymous letters, mailboxes smashed, strange cars idling at midnight. Every intimidation attempt left fingerprints, plate numbers, and video. Her next move was desperation disguised as strategy. She filed an injunction to strip my permitting authority, claiming conflict of interest. At the same time, she tried pushing her resort permits through state override, forgetting one simple truth. You can buy influence. You can forge signatures, but you can't fake federal environmental clearance, and that was about to be her undoing. 3 days before the council meeting, I woke at 3 a.m. to a sound I'll never forget, the whine of chainsaws and the deep roar of generators. My orchard glowed under floodlights like a crime scene. Crews in hard hats and reflective vests were clear-cutting trees, claiming emergency environmental remediation. Except there was no emergency, just an illegal demolition. I grabbed my phone, started filming, and called the EPA's regional office. By sunrise, federal stop work orders were in motion. At 6 a.m., sheriff's deputies arrived with printed directives. The crew scattered, leaving half-fallen trunks and tire tracks carved into the mud. But Delia fought back the only way she knew how, with spin. By noon, Phoenix PR firms flooded social media with posts about how I was blocking jobs in progress. Dozens of identical accounts, same captions, same grammar, an AstroTurf campaign, pretending to be local support. Then came retaliation. My truck tires were slashed in the county garage. Someone left a Phoenix hotel receipt at the scene. Cameras at my farm caught masked men testing the fence line in vehicles registered to her shell companies. Meanwhile, Rachel Chen's investigation went national, revealing stolen construction equipment and felons on Delia's payroll. Environmental sampling confirmed contaminated soil trucked in from a Phoenix site under federal cleanup. That's when the agencies converged. FBI surveillance posts, EPA criminal enforcement, IRS raids on our offices. By week's end, I'd been placed under federal witness protection. The farm still smelled like diesel and sawdust, but for the first time I felt something stronger than fear. Momentum. The tide had turned. And for Delia Prescott, time was officially up, October 14th, the day Delia Prescott planned her grand victory. The golden shovel ceremony, cameras, ribbon-cutting, politicians, all gathered on land she didn't even own. The morning air was sharp, heavy with the scent of wet soil and justice. As she stood at the podium, her voice rang out. Today we break ground on Willowbrook's bright future. Only this time the future had other plans. I was in the crowd holding a manila folder thick enough to change history. When the Q&A opened, I stepped forward. Ms. Prescott, care to explain why your permits claim ownership of 2 acres of federal wetland? The color drained from her face. Still, she tried to bluff. Those documents are approved, she snapped, waving a clearance report. Right then, FBI agent Sarah Morrison raised her badge. Delia Prescott, you're under arrest for mail fraud, wire fraud, environmental crimes, and racketeering. The crowd gasped. Cameras clicked. Her golden shovel clattered to the dirt. One by one, her associates were cuffed. Phoenix suits. Local officials, all silent as their empire crumbled. Within weeks, she pled guilty to 12 years in federal prison and $3.2 million in restitution. 17 arrests followed across 4 states. The HOA dissolved by court order. The orchard survived, expanded in fact. The wetland was federally protected, funded by a restoration grant. Every fall we host the Willowbrook Apple Festival, where kids press cider beside the pond that almost vanished. I still walk that orchard at sunrise. The air smells like blossoms and second chances, because sometimes justice grows roots deeper than greed ever could.